Dr. B. How are
Hi there.
you?
Hi there. Let me make sure I look
Oh,
okay.
I know. My gosh, look at these roots here. I've got a hair
Uh,
appointment on Friday. Oh, can't wait.
Let me tell you, I'm almost 2+ years away from 80. It's getting harder and
Wow.
harder, getting
Wow.
harder and harder
Yeah.
and harder.
Yeah. Well, we are just human at the end of the day, right?
Right? I've just been watching all this anthropological yeah, we're all, it's funny how so many anti-aging people want to live to be 160. Like David Asprey says
Oh,
he's going to live to be 168. He wrote in Superhuman.
yeah.
And I'm not sure we're set up to be that old, at least not right now.
No, he is certainly not. I used to like Dave back in the day, but I can't stand him now, to be perfectly honest. I'm like, he's just lost the plot a little bit. Who wants to live till that age? I don't want to live till 168 because no one else is going to be around.
No one that you know and love or loves you, right?
Yeah.
Even now, so many, my best girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
my oldest, dearest girlfriend, and she's 10 years younger than me.
Mm.
She has all these health issues. She's
Yeah.
very, very fragile.
Yeah.
And um,
Yeah. It's so sad, isn't it? Yeah,
but
I
you look
know.
you look fantastic.
Oh,
You
so
look
do you.
fantastic. Oh,
Oh,
thank
so do
you. Thank
you.
you. Thank
Yeah, no,
you.
I hear you. It's hard. And I've got one of my best girlfriends too. She lives 4 hours up the coast. And, we're the same age. But my goodness, she's a single mother and she's had two kids, two different husbands, abusive. And so the stress she's been under. So raging hypothyroidism, endometriosis, and I worry about her. I worry about her longevity. So, people like you and I, we do our best and we know what to do, but what good is it if nobody else is doing it and we're left alone?
I hear what you're saying. I just came back. I was doing a European tour,
hmm
and then I took some time off and went to Greece.
Yeah.
And the women in Greece, so I was by myself in Greece, and so I was most of the business owners that own all these beautiful little stores I was wandering about, they're all owned by women.
Yeah.
And they all told me that they don't want to be with Greek men because there's so much femicide. Like Greek
Oh,
men beat and murder their wives.
whoa.
And
Goodness
there's
me.
lots of ways to occupy this incarnation. There's
Yes, there
lots of
so
ways to
is.
occupy, and health isn't the only
No.
aspect of it. It's
Yeah.
having, anyway, we should
Yeah.
probably be talking on all of this, but
Okay.
honestly, I'm such a big fan of yours,
Oh,
Tara.
oh my gosh. What a thing to
I am
say.
such a big fan of yours,
Oh, I'm a
and
fan of yours.
I have really lovely, lovely thoughts of you. I see I
Oh,
should
that's so
comb this here.
sweet. Oh my
And so
goodness. What
thank
an
you for
honor.
having me on the show.
Of
Thank you for having me
course.
on the show.
Oh gosh, my pleasure. All right, so I'll press record. We'll just jam it out. I don't mind
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, jam it out. Talk
Whatever you
about
want
whatever
to
you
talk
want.
about.
Okay, cool. And then we'll
Okay.
promote you and go from there. Now let me just make sure. I think I've got it
You
on.
look you look really, really, really good.
Oh, that's very kind because I don't feel it with these roots. But thank you, and so do you. Now let me see. I've got it on speaker view. I think that's correct. And now I'll find the record button and we'll go. Here we go.
Okay, that sounds great. Is my voice sound okay?
Yeah, it does. It does. Let me
Okay.
just hit. Let's see. Is this recording? 1 second. I'm a little technologically challenged. Here we go.
No, no worries at all. No
It's
worries at all.
it's on. Yeah, stop recording, pause recording, computer recording is on. So we've been recording, so we'll cut out that front bit. Okay, so what I'll do, I will record your intro off camera. So we'll just jump in
That
and
sounds
maybe if you want to
and
tell, do you want to say a little bit about your history and what you've been through and why you're here? Do you want to do all
well,
that?
no, I
No.
don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm bored with that, but I wanted to talk about Australia and my relationship with Australia
Oh,
because
okay.
yes, that's what I thought I would open with.
Sure.
I
Okay.
would open I thought I
Yeah.
would open with that.
Let's do it. All right. Okay. Are we ready?
We're
Shall we
ready.
go?
We're ready.
All right. Hello, Dr. Berkson, and welcome to the podcast. Hello, I'm so thrilled to have you here. We were talking off camera and I think we got a really good rapport. I really like you.
Back at you, back
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah, it's been, and like I've known of you for a long time, well before you ever knew of little old me, because I actually used to live in Canada. So that's going on, oh gosh, 8 years ago, and I'm in Australia now, but I was in Canada
Where in
and
Canada?
I was in Vancouver and then I was in Toronto for 12 years. There's
Oh,
six in
so
Vancouver.
Vancouver's the most beautiful part of Canada, and
It
Van
is.
and Toronto
Is
is just
not.
like, well, it's just like my hometown, Chicago. You can hardly tell any difference between Toronto and
A
Chicago.
bit of a concrete jungle. Yeah,
I know, I
I
know.
love
Austin's
Vancouver.
getting that way here, though,
Yeah,
I must
right.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Well, I've known you for a long time, and then, we did a Instagram live together. I don't, when was that? Beginning of this year or last year? And I will put that in the show notes because everybody needs to watch that. We talked a lot about flax on that one. That was a good
Oh,
Instagram live.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
great, great.
But now we're going to chat all things breast cancer,
Yes,
estrogen.
yes,
Maybe we'll touch on
yes,
oxytocin.
yes.
So we can really just start wherever you
Well,
want to
I
start.
wanted to open up with how much
Hmm.
I feel Australia and Australians are in my heart.
Oh,
So when I sold my first practice,
yeah,
when I was 42,
yeah.
and now I'm soon to be 78,
Amazing.
I
Yeah,
decided I wanted to go on a lifetime vacation. So I
yeah.
went to Australia
Wow.
and I lived in Australia
Hmm.
for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I thought Australians were absolutely some of the best people I've ever met in my life. I
Oh, wow.
actually looked into moving to Australia,
Oh, bummer. Wish you
but they
did.
wanted you to have all this money in the bank. I think it was at
Yeah.
that time like 500,000 or $1 million
Oh
in the bank
gosh.
before you can go. And
Yeah.
I was only 42 at that time or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. But I actually have on my desk, I got this from Australia,
Oh.
and I have jewelry and opals from Australia. But the
Oh.
biggest thing was the time I spent with Australians. I really felt like they were my brothers and sisters.
Oh, that's
So it's
lovely.
so great to be chatting with Australians. And when I was there, I love popcorn, and they have popcorn with a little white confectionery sugar on it in these little teeny white paper bags. And I was like, oh no, in America, we have huge
Mm-hmm.
containers of popcorn with
Mm-hmm.
butter on it and
Mm-hmm.
salt. And they were
Hmm.
all like, ooh, that
Yeah.
sounds awful. And I said, let me make you some. So I held a party with
Yeah.
whatever place I was staying at. And I invited all these Australians to have American popcorn. And they loved it, loved it, loved it. And I had
Oh.
so many memories from Australia. So I want you to know that I really appreciate Australians
Oh.
and your country. And I really want the world's citizens to come together, even if our
Mm.
leaders have all these issues
Yeah.
in their tissues. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean we have to have
That's
these
right.
issues in our
Yeah.
tissues with each other.
Yeah.
So I
I love
I
that.
admire Australia, and I'm so very glad to be having this chance to have a conversation with you.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much. That's really kind. Well, I've been to your part of the world many, many times. Like I said, lived in Canada for a long time, jumped down to the States. And you know what? I really enjoyed the American people because I think they're a little like us. See, again, I lived in Canada for a long time. Beautiful people, of course. Um, but the Americans, you guys are a little bit like piss takers like us, you know?
I think so. I
Yeah.
really agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have a bit of a kinship there. So that's
I feel
awesome.
the same way. I just came back from a European lecture tour where I
Mm-hmm.
was lecturing in a different country every day. And then
Mm-hmm.
I took off and went to Greece for a while. And when I was in Greece, I was a single woman, an older, mature, I try and talk to myself as mature, but as older
Yeah.
woman in Greece. And I was shocked at how many people came up to me and told me they hated America and they didn't
Yeah.
like us here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you don't want to get into an argument or a
Yeah.
negative discussion when you're in another country. And
Yeah.
I was so interesting to me that they felt
Yeah.
strong enough to come
Yeah.
up and say that to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I am really trying to support woman to woman,
Yeah.
human to
Human
human.
to human.
It's the people at the top creating all of
Correct.
this chitch.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to get a chance to talk to your
Yeah.
citizens and you with all of that stuff moved
Yeah.
aside because
Yeah.
I truly respect you and adore you.
Yeah. Oh,
That
so
truly, truly.
human to human, and we'll move on, but human to human, that's it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what country we're in. We're on planet Earth. We're on
Oh,
planet Earth.
blessings,
You know?
blessings,
That's all
blessings.
that matters at the end of the day. And I cannot stand this anti-American rhetoric. I cannot stand it. And I think it's ignorant because, again, we are just humans on planet Earth. And like you said, politics is one thing,
Blessings.
but we're just humans. Forget the politics. All
And
right,
we're here
good.
to
We're on
help
the same
learn how
page.
to feel better inside our bodysuit,
Yes.
have a great time with this incarnation, to kind
Mm-hmm.
of, deal with a lot of the misunderstanding, let's put it that way,
Yes.
that we have in medicine, mainly
Yeah.
because big pharma
Yeah.
rules a lot of the countries, not just America, not just Australia, but many countries. So, what's the reality, human to human, to try and help stay as healthy as you can, as long as you can? Nobody's going to live forever, but to go to have the best experience of this
That's right.
incarnation.
And be a nice person because you feel good. So with
Only
that,
nasty people. Nasty people, I often think, I was thinking really when somebody came up and said, "We hate America, we hate your president,
terrible.
we don't like you, you should become
Oh,
socialistic." I was like,
yeah,
in this Asian restaurant where I was at a communal
terrible.
table, and the first thought I had was, they must not be happy, they
Correct.
must not be healthy.
Absolutely. Not happy. You're not mean-spirited when you're happy. All right, let's then talk about how do we get healthy. And I want to ask, I want to ask the question that's on everyone's lips. Maybe we'll just go here first.
Okay.
Does estrogen cause breast cancer? People are still very concerned about this. Does it cause breast cancer, Dr. B?
So that is, you're such a brilliant questioner, interviewer, because
No.
that's the first big question. So this is the story.
Yep.
We got hoodwinked. We
Mm-hmm.
got hoodwinked big time. So do I have that book here? No, I've got it downstairs. So our 28th FDA head, Dr. Marty McCary, who just got pressured out of that position, but for a short time, he was in that position over the last year. He
Mm-hmm.
was head of our federal, Department of Agency, FDA,
Yep.
and he wrote a book called Blind Spots.
Mm.
And the subtitle is When Medicine Gets It Wrong, what does it mean for you? And he explained that so America's an aging nation, women live longer than men,
Mhm.
and Medicare is what pays for health care for older citizens in
Yeah.
our country. So we didn't want to topple Medicare. So how do we keep women healthier longer without spending a lot of money and the government being put, with its pants pulled down?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the Women's Health Initiative was started. It was a
Right.
series of 40 different centers looking at women every which way. How do we save the government from Medicare toppling?
Mm.
And the first studies they ran were on hormones,
Right.
because hormones in the 1950s and 60s first started out as replacement in
Mm.
England, and
Right.
then it came and got really popular in America. And by the 1990s, the majority of American women were on hormones. Cardiologists, if they did a stent surgery, were recommending hormones after the stent surgery.
Wow.
Hormones were written by books by gynecologists saying forever young. If you go on hormones, you'll stay forever young. So they thought they would run some randomized trials and prove that this was right.
Yeah.
So the Women's Health Initiative was begun
Yep.
to try not to topple Medicare,
Yep.
our insurance program for older people. How do we keep older women healthy longer without putting the government into bankruptcy? And
Yep.
so they were sure that hormones were one of the answers. So they ran the first studies as hormones. And the first study was with estrogen only, and the second study was with estrogen and synthetic progestins. It was a very popular pill at the time. It was estrogen made from horses' urine, so it was called Premarin, which comes from pregnant mare's urine. That's where the name comes from. And the synthetic progestin was medroxyprogesterone acetate, and together it was a combo pill called Prempro. So one of the studies was on estrogen horse urine, Premarin. The other study was on the combination of Premarin with a synthetic progesterone, or progestin is the more accurate term. And actually, it was starting to look like all of um, the pre-statistical studies looked like the trend was protection against breast cancer. As soon as they had enough studies, they started to get statistical significance that estrogen did in fact protect against breast cancer. And all of a sudden, the primary investigator, Jacques Rousseau, crazy, crazy, crazy. He calls a meeting of all the co-authors. So you have a chief primary investigator of all the 40 institutions that are each running these studies. So it was a multi-centered study. And he called all the co-authors together, and they normally met once or twice a year to just update each other, but it was brand new. And he called them all together and he said, well, I'm putting out a press release tonight. And that press release is going to say that estrogen causes breast cancer. And all of the co-authors present said, wait a second. And Marty Makary writes about this entire scenario in the second chapter of his book called Blind Spots. That's why I mentioned it. You can read this whole story in his best-selling book called Blind Spots that was published in 2024. And they said, it looks like the trend is that the women on estrogen have less breast cancer. And as soon as we have enough information, so it isn't just a trend, but it's enough information to get a statistical significance. In fact, estrogen is breast protective. And he looked at all the co-authors and he said, if any of you open up your mouths, your careers are done in Washington. Dissension will not be tolerated. And this is the press release that's going out. So the Women's Health Initiative, with what the effect of hormones were on breast cancer risk, had at least 15 reanalyses over 20 years, every single one either showing a trend of protection of estrogen or statistically significant, which means way beyond chance in statistical terms, that this happened because, in fact, what A caused B. So estrogen caused protection against breast cancer. And the final reanalysis took place in 2019 by all the original authors of the Women's Health Initiative. And they said, this is our final analysis. If a healthy woman has, in fact, been on estrogen for an average of 5 years, she has a reduction in incidence of breast cancer by 23%. That's almost a quarter. That's huge. If she gets breast cancer after having been on estrogen, she has a reduction of dying from it, a fatality incidence by 44%. That means you reduce by almost half your risk of dying from breast cancer if you had been on hormone replacement therapy. So if your provider recommends hormone replacement therapy, they have to tell you anybody can get breast cancer at any time. But if you're on hormone replacement and then you do get breast cancer, you're better off. You're much better off. These are the original authors that said this. And now in America, we published in 2024 in Menopause a study that was the largest hormone study ever done by our National Institute of Health, our NIH, which is kind of our big wig, but we don't trust anyone in upper higher ups anymore. We're all, ever since COVID, we're looking at everyone through slanted eyes here. And now we just had a release this week of Fauci's diary. So we're all in an uproar over here in America. We don't trust anybody anymore. But nonetheless, we had a paper, the largest study ever run on hormones. And they took a look at women 65 and older. They had 10 million women. 10 million women, and they had their medical files because women in America who are 65 and older get their health care insurance. I'm way over 65, right? I'm like 13 years over 65. And I get my health care myself through Medicare, although I don't get my functional medicine health care through Medicare. And 1,500,000 of those women were on estrogen replacement therapy. So they compared what was the health like, and the breast cancer, the lung cancer, the colorectal cancer, all the other cancer risk, et cetera, the neurodegenerative like Alzheimer's risk. How did women that were older do on hormones in the long term compared to women who weren't? And we've got this massive body of women, 10 million, of which 1,500,000 were on hormones, and we've got their medical files. Although, mind you, a lot of women on bioidentical hormones aren't part of this because they often don't tell their doctors what they get, or they pay for it out
Right.
of cash. I pay for my
Mm,
hormones out of cash.
yeah.
I don't tell my regular doctor that I take my hormones
Yeah.
from where I get them. It's separate because they've all been so against them.
Yeah.
And in that study, they discovered without a doubt that
Mhm.
every single form of estrogen,
Yeah.
be it estradiol, be it Premarin,
Yeah.
be it any other form of estrogen, every single form of estrogen protected against breast cancer.
Amazing.
Statistically significant, no doubt. It also protected against two other cancers statistically. It
Mm-hmm.
protected against lung cancer,
Mm-hmm.
it protected against colorectal cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and then it had a trend of protection against about 7 or 8 other cancers.
Amazing.
So estrogen doesn't cause breast cancer. The science says
Mm-hmm.
that it protects against breast cancer and your risk of dying from it if you get it. And the whole reason why Jacques Rousseau sent out that
Yeah.
fake press release, and how can one press release change the whole
Oh,
course of the way we view it
yeah.
hormones? I don't understand this.
Wow.
After that, allopathic med schools, osteopathic med schools, naturopathic med schools, everybody stopped teaching hormones to providers. So the providers that we have now in practice, they've never been trained in hormones. They
Yeah.
know ditquat.
Yeah.
Is that a word about hormones? So when patients ask them, are I a candidate for hormones? You're usually down on what you're
Yeah.
not up on.
Yeah.
So we're in a hormone mess at the moment, which is
Correct.
why I appreciate getting in on these conversations to explain what really
Yeah.
happened in the back copy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. That was really well explained, really well said. A few different thoughts. And you're right. There was for so long, doctors weren't trained in hormones, but now of late, right? I mean, you've been talking about hormones for decades, right? So you
Well,
know.
I've been testing. Well, so my mentor,
Uh,
I've been testing hormones in the early 1970s, and my mentor was Dr. Jonathan Wright, who's credited with being one of the pioneers and fathers of bioidentical hormone therapy. And he and I hold many patents on
mhm.
bioidentical hormones, and we've done a lot. I have my 21st book just came out, and he's written a lot of the forwards to many of those books. So I've been running hormone testing on
Mm.
my patients since the early to mid 1970s.
Wow. So you know a thing or two about hormones. And then we've got newbie doctors on the scene, and we've gotten a lot of confusion out there now.
Right,
There is
right.
so much confusion, so many different voices, and I have so many women coming to me so confused. And a lot of the things that's talked about can be very dangerous. Like I had an experience recently whereby I switched my oral progesterone to doing it vaginally for a few different silly reasons, and my anxiety went through the roof. And I'd never really, I didn't really quite put two and two together. First, my sleep. And I went, what am I doing here? And I switched back to the oral, back to my normal self. No anxiety, no sleep. I think these voices can be quite damaging when people are giving out and fear mongering, like, the whole fear mongering right now about oral progesterone that's out there. You know?
Well, so
Mhm.
everybody's got their own opinion,
Yes.
right? And Dr. Roussier here in the United States, who I like a lot, he
Yes.
trains a lot of doctors. He tells everybody to prescribe oral estrogen, but the majority of us in the hormone space do not agree with oral estrogen.
Right,
And
right.
the reason we don't agree with it is when it goes through the digestive tract and
Yeah.
then through the liver, it creates metabolites. And
Mm-hmm.
those metabolites are often procoagulative and
Mm-hmm.
pro-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest issues with hormones, with estrogen, is when it's taken orally.
Yeah.
Topically, you don't see any of those issues.
No.
Vaginally, you don't. But so delivery modes are the way hormones get into you. And there's a
Hmm.
wide array of which you can get a hormone into because your own body isn't making it anymore. So you're looking at science, at compounding pharmacies, at prescribers to give you a form of estrogen to get it into you. That's
Hmm.
called a delivery mode. But vaginal is not an easy delivery mode. It's a
Hmm.
delivery mode with a lot of nuances. I write a Substack every morning called Agile Thinking.
Hmm.
And yes, in the last 2 days, I've done a lot on vaginal delivery.
Mm.
And vaginal delivery is much more nuanced.
Yeah.
It's much stronger. So
Yeah.
you often have to reduce your dose by 75%. If you
Yeah.
don't, you're going to have side effects.
Yeah.
And if you have a uterus, you can have spotting.
Yeah.
And so vaginal delivery is, I take my hormones vaginal
Yeah.
delivery because it's really easy and I don't have a uterus and I'm
Yeah.
older and it's easier for me. So
Yeah.
there's very many delivery modes, but topical is the most commonly used
Yeah.
in the United States
Yeah.
that has the least downstream issues,
Yeah.
that doesn't have the vaginal issues. But I love my vaginal delivery, but it's
Yeah.
not for everybody, as I
Yeah.
wrote yesterday in my Substack. But you have to reduce the dose because the the vaginal mucosa is the vaginal vault. That's what it's called, that little
Yeah.
narrow opening that we all love so much, men and
Hmm.
women. It's called the vaginal vault, not the
Yep.
vault into the gold, but the vault into your soul. It's called the vaginal vault,
Yeah.
and it's lined with mucosal tissue,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
which is very, very absorptive.
Yeah.
It's so absorptive that if you don't reduce the dose that you took
Yeah.
orally greatly by the what you put into your vagina, you get into
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
So I don't know if is that what happened to you
Well,
or
no,
what?
because mine was progesterone. So estrogen, I use a patch, but I switched from the oral progesterone and I tried vaginal progesterone, but I didn't get the allopregnanolone effect vaginally. So anxiety, sleep issues, switched back to the oral progesterone. All sorted, back to normal. So mine was not an estrogen thing, it was
I
more of a
see.
progesterone thing. But I do know that there's a lot of talk out there at the moment from certain camps that oral progesterone, not estrogen, because yeah, we know that the oral progesterone can cause some
I
issues.
don't agree with any of those problems with oral progesterone. I think those
Good.
women should be ripped off of the
Thank
internet.
you.
I
Yeah.
think the majority of OBGYNs that are giving all
Yeah.
this nonsense. So oral progesterone does not cause dementia.
Yeah.
Oral progesterone does not block your receptors and make them
Yes. Thank
dysfunctional.
you.
Even taking it transdermally causes most progesterone, 95%, to bind to allopregnanolone
Yes.
receptors. So I know exactly who those
Yes, I know
OBGYNs
you
are.
do.
I've roomed with them. I've lectured with
I
them.
know you have.
And I want to put a big tape
Yeah.
over their mouth.
Well, thank
I
you. Because
I think
yeah.
that they're saying that to be famous and to
Yeah.
make waves and to make it
Yeah.
sound. This is my own. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
I believe that there's so much confusion online because people want to be an influencer, they
Yeah.
want to be famous, they want to make
Yeah.
money, they want to sound like they have their finger on the pulse and
Mm.
nobody else does.
Mm.
You can take,
Yeah.
but progesterone, usually given vaginally,
Yeah.
Tara, is usually for local issues that you
Sure.
want to get. So the vagina is a mucous membrane. The hormone diffuses into the uterus, so it's perfect
Hmm.
for polyps, for
Yes.
enlarged thickening of the lining of the uterus,
Yeah.
endometrial hyperplasia. It's really great for recurrent miscarriages.
Yeah.
It's really great for recurrent uterine UTIs, uterine
Sure.
recurrent infections. So
Yeah.
you usually give progesterone vaginally for what happens in Vegas. They say the saying
Stays in
stays in
Vegas.
Vegas.
That's
What
it.
happens with progesterone stays in the
Yeah.
uterus, and we usually give
Yeah.
progesterone vaginally for local issues. We usually give progesterone transdermally
Yeah.
or orally. The caveats where people say that oral progesterone will cause you issues in your tissues. So I want to debate those people. So a number
Yeah.
of these OBGYNs have been saying terrible, terrible things like you're on the patch
Yep.
and the patch is estradiol,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't contain estriol.
No, that's
So
right.
you can either add estriol another way or you can take a transdermal with estriol.
Right.
So there was this OBGYN
Yeah.
saying estriol is bad, it's
I know.
immunosuppressive, it's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen Martell, I reached out
Yes.
to her and I said, because Karen Martell was influenced by
I
this
know.
gynecologist, and I said, let's do a debate.
I heard
So
it.
Dr. Rosensweet and myself did a
Mm-hmm.
debate with this gynecologist and Dr. Janet Yuganagi, I think is her name.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pronounce her last name. And we were talking about estriol. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, give me a paper where you show that estriol is immunosuppressive or dangerous. And there wasn't one paper.
Yeah.
And we gave over 40 papers that showed that estriol is anti-carcinogenic. It
Yeah.
protects you against cancer. So
Yeah.
why would you want to take estradiol without estriol?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's anti-inflammatory. And we all know that inflammation is the bugaboo that gets you.
Yeah.
And so that's the deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's great to have these conversations, because you should listen to everybody's conversation
Yeah.
and see what your internal gut sense
Yeah.
says. This makes sense. This
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. I put A and B and C together, and this makes sense, and that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But a lot of people bad mouthing so most of my colleagues have been using Bi-Est,
Yes.
estradiol plus estriol, for 30 to 50 years.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody in my space that doesn't recommend Bi-Est. But now
Yeah.
we've got some gynecologists in the social media space who are all saying you shouldn't use Bi-Est. You should,
Mm.
just use estradiol,
Mm-hmm.
because estriol, the second estrogen, estradiol is the first estrogen, estriol is the second estrogen. And now we have
Mm-hmm.
4 estrogens, and we have
Mm-hmm.
actually 60 molecules that are estrogenic
Mm-hmm.
acting. It's not really just limited to 4, but they're saying it's dangerous. And I think they're trying to say that, this is my opinion only, to try and sound like they're at the top of the heap and you should only
Yeah.
listen to them. And
Yeah.
they want to make their money. They want to
Yeah.
get the patients sent to them. I've actually sent quite a number of patients to them and
Yeah.
been kind of consistently disappointed.
Yeah.
So I take myself, I do all my hormones vaginally right at the moment.
Yeah.
And I've been taking Bi-Est for the last 32 years.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
So,
everybody gets to choose if you can work with a provider that lets you choose.
yeah. Now, biased, why don't we bring this back to breast cancer and how is biased protective for the breast? And by the way, bringing this back to breast cancer,
Good
why?
point. Good point. Good
Yeah.
point.
And
Good
why do
segue. Good segue.
But also, why are people scared of, like, why, what can we put in a nutshell why people still think estrogen causes breast cancer? I believe that
Just from that press
from
release,
that, yes. And
there's not
also,
one study. There's not
uh-huh.
one study that shows that. It's only cell
Yeah, right.
studies that show that estrogen causes
Right.
proliferation. But in the human body, you've got multiple
Yeah.
estrogens and they balance out. And
Yeah.
we used to think that I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
right. Go ahead. Please do.
Okay. So we used to think that estrogen mainly caused growth, and
Yes.
that's because it signals the number one receptor that was discovered by Elwa Jensen in 1985 that I worked with at Tulane. I was a distinguished hormone scholar
Yeah.
at an environmental estrogen think tank called the Center for Bioenvironmental Research at Tulane, and I got to hang out with Elwa Jensen. I got to hang out with Yanaki Gustafson, who discovered the second estrogen receptor, but now we have at least 5 receptors discovered so
Right.
far, and we have many, many more that are coming down
Wow.
the pike. And the first receptor looked like estrogen, signaled the first, so it was called ER alpha. It
Mm-hmm.
caused growth, and so cancer's growth out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And when estrogen signals ER alpha, the first receptor, and it signals growth, everyone goes, oh, well, estrogen causes growth. Cancer, logically thinking, is growth out of
Mm-hmm.
control. Estrogen is non bueno. It causes growth out of control.
Mm-hmm.
But then 10 years later, from the Karolinska Institute, which is Sweden's version of our Harvard, although I no longer have respect for Harvard like I used to have, so I don't say it's equal to our Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
He discovered the second estrogen receptor. So in the Greek alphabet, it's called beta, ER beta. He discovered ER beta, and he discovered that what signals ER beta signals controlled growth. So it keeps a handle on
Mm-hmm.
growth, and it controls inflammation. And on the 20th birthday, which was around 2016, 2000, et cetera, he wrote a paper, Why Aren't Clinicians Giving signalers of ER beta to breast cancer patients, to brain cancer patients, to colorectal cancer patients. It's your anti-cancer estrogen. Well, then we discovered that there were 3 more receptors, and 2 of them were also growth controllers. So this whole idea, the reason that estrogen gets bad-mouthed and everyone gets scared and pissed off at her is they think she just promotes growth.
Yeah.
But if you know the science, her where she signals more of controlled growth or anti-inflammatory and more controlled growth, which is anti-cancer, than she does growth. But most people haven't been trained in this because they stopped teaching anything about hormones 25 years ago. So that's why, while all my peers are sipping Mai Tais by the ocean, I am still running around the world lecturing and writing.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I think also when people hear estrogen positive breast cancer, right? They automatically assume, and it couldn't be further from the truth, that estrogen caused their breast cancer. But the opposite is true, right? When you've got an estrogen positive breast cancer, you're better off than estrogen negative breast cancer. So I think that wording has actually done a lot of damage as well. Just people falsely assuming that it was estrogen that caused their cancer.
That is such a smart comment. You are a smart cookie. It's nice to have this conversation with you. So there are many of us now, a growing faction that was first led by Avram Blooming, who is an oncologist in Southern California, and he wrote a book called Estrogen Matters. I like his first book. I don't like his sequels because he's anti-bioidentical hormones, but I did interview him for Safe Hormones, Smart Women, which was one of the major books that I wrote on hormones way back when.
Yeah, great book.
So I actually have a new version of that coming out, but it's just not out yet. So FYI, stay tuned. Thank you. But so he said, it's a theory. ER positive, PR positive, they suggest that means that estrogen fuels your tumor, that progesterone fuels your tumor. It's a theory, and he says it's a wrong theory.
Right.
So you have to know that every single cell in your breast is ER positive, PR positive, HER2 positive, androgen positive. You have all these receptors on all of your healthy cells.
Yeah.
So he states in his book, the first edition, Estrogen Matters, which is a great read.
Yeah.
He states, although I don't like his comments on bioidentical hormones, you can't agree with everybody on everything, but I like what he says. He says that when you have an ER positive breast cancer, it just means that you have more of an archival cell and the cancer hasn't totally overtaken it. It does not mean that that cell is fueled by estrogen. And now let me back this up by science, not just this one oncologist. And he also wrote it with a psychologist, Tarvis. So it's a dual authorship on that book. So, so let's look. What happens if you give a woman who's been diagnosed with ER positive breast cancer estrogen therapy? If estrogen fuels, if that ER positivity of that protein on the tumor cell suggests that that the tumor is fueled by estrogen, then she must do much worse if you give her estrogen. That tumor should start growing out of control, her fatality. So let me tell you, there are 25 studies. He writes about them in Everything Estrogen. And I just co-sponsored with Dr. David Brownstein a 20-hour CME course called Everything Breast Cancer with 14 other experts in the field. And we talked about how to keep breast cancer patients safe, combining functional care with alternative care, and what is really the role of ER positive, PR positive, HER2 positive, etc. And there are 25 studies that women with ER positive breast cancer from stages 0 to 3 have been given estrogen, often many of those studies also give some kind of progesterone, and it varied because they were multi-centered.
Mhm.
Some of those and all of those studies tracked matched cohorts. That means they compared women with ER-positive breast cancer
Mhm.
given hormones,
Yep.
given estrogen, compared to women with the same tumor size,
Yep.
with the same age, with the same stage,
Mhm.
not given cancer.
Yep.
And many of those
Hormones.
studies
Yep.
were 30 years, 32 years, 36 years. These women were tracked
Wow.
for 3.5 decades.
Wow.
Some of them were tracked 2 to 5 years. So the average tracking was close to a decade. Most
Wow.
human studies don't go
Yep.
that long. Every
Yep.
single study, those women that had ER positive breast cancer given estrogen had less recurrence. If they did have
Wow.
recurrence, they had less death. If they did have recurrence, they had less aggressive markings and they had less fatality. So, why did I
Wow.
get into all of this? Why did I get into all of this? So, when I was, how old was I now? It's even hard for me. It was 32 years ago. I
Yep.
can't even remember how old I was 32 years ago. I had breast cancer.
Yeah.
And I was ER positive in the 90s,
Yeah.
PR3, which would be now PR negative.
Uh-huh.
No one studied HER2 back then, but I knew
Right.
about it because I read the literature all the time.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
$6,000, I ran my own HER2 and I was positive,
Wow.
but no one knew what to do with that. There
Yeah.
was no there was no sentinel node back then. So I
Right.
begged a Palo Alto surgeon to try and do my sentinel node, and
Wow.
she by mistake eliminated um, 18 of my lymph nodes, and all of them were healthy, but they're all
Oh
gone
gosh.
now.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so I had had a total hysterectomy a few years prior to that, and after I had breast cancer, I was going downhill, dying
Mm.
on the vine. Ended up to
Mhm.
be a puddle of clothes and shoes and rings
Mm.
and a few bones and nothing left
Mm.
of me. And so I dove into the literature and saw that what we were hearing wasn't what the science said. So
Mm.
I've now been on hormones for 29 years. And
Yeah.
the only reason I could say that I'm almost 20, yeah, I'm 2 years from 80,
Yep.
and I'm running around the country lecturing,
Yep.
writing books, doing Substacks every day, doing this
Hmm.
because I have a brain and
Yes.
because I have
Hmm.
strong bones
You do.
and because
Yeah.
I still work out.
Yep.
It's because I've been on hormones for
Yeah.
3 decades. So I
That's
have
it.
lived this. And I put on this conference recently, the CME Continuing Medical Education Conference. And I don't know if in Australia they have requirements for CME. I just
Hmm.
lectured in
Hmm. You
Mexico and
do.
they don't have CME requirements. They do in
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to come and lecture in Australia.
Yeah, for sure. We need you down here. We're a little behind the times down
Well,
here.
they're very yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
behind
So
the times.
it's a lot of places are, but I still
Yeah.
love Australia. But
Yeah.
medically, a lot of
Yeah.
people think they're being right if
Yeah.
they're up with the very standard of care. But standard of
Yeah.
care can get in
No.
your way, can
Yeah,
really get in your
100%.
way if you're the one living the issue, right? If you're the
Yeah.
one living the
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
But so the reason I put this course on was I didn't want my sisters of my heart, my other breast
Mm.
cancer survivors, to be missing out on wrong information. There
Yeah.
is no study that shows that giving estrogen to breast cancer patients is worse. The only study that suggests that is the Habit study.
Hmm.
And if you really read the belly of that study, the small cohort, which means a
Hmm.
group of women in that study that went on estrogen and had a recurrence of breast cancer, they were on tamoxifen. They were on an estrogen blocker
Right.
at the same time they were on
Oh,
estrogen. So that
goodness.
nullifies them being
Correct.
on estrogen. So you have to
Hmm.
know the devil is in the
Yeah,
details and the
sure
knowledge
is.
is in the details. So that's why we're here having this
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely.
And
Amazing.
we have a version for the everyday woman to take this
Oh,
course
okay. Do
to
you?
learn what to do. We did. We've just recently, and we're working on it still, but we had so many people interested in this because
Yeah.
cancer is a tsunami
Yeah.
affecting all of us because of
Yeah.
many multifactorial issues. But we have now 3 versions of this Everything Breast Cancer course. We have a
Hmm.
version for professionals with CMEs, a version
Yep.
for professionals without CMEs, and a version for the everyday woman who wants
Brilliant.
to keep safe or has already had breast cancer and wants to stay
Oh,
safe.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And Sarah did email me with a code, which I can put in the show notes, which is giving every listener $100 off, I believe. So I've got
Yes.
that code. So thank you so much. So for everybody listening, that will go in the show notes with, of course, all your links to everywhere we can find you. Okay, fabulous. So estrogen doesn't cause breast cancer. Estrogen positive breast cancer is not as scary as people think it to be, and it doesn't mean that estrogen caused their breast cancer. What about, shall we touch on Bi-Est now and Bi-Est and breast cancer specifically?
You are so great at asking questions. Oh my goodness, you are really talented at this. So, estradiol does not cause breast cancer, and it's very protective on many tissues for many issues. We know if you, so estradiol that you're taking in is a patch. The patch
Yeah,
only
I know.
contains
I know. I need some estriol. I
no,
know.
I wish they had a Bi-Est patch, but because the patch does help maintain really quality levels throughout the
Yeah.
week. You
Well,
take it twice a
the
week.
the reason I switched to the patch was because really my only symptom, although my husband might argue with this, in perimenopause is migraines. I was a little bit rocky this last cycle, I will admit to that. But really, I've just got these migraines, the menstrual migraines. But I've tried everything. Like, I've given up a little. There's not much you can do for these menstrual migraines. So I tried the patch. I was hoping it would be nice and steady. I don't get many of the migraines, and I figure they'll go once I'm through menopause. But I don't know if you've got any.
You might try my products.
Oh,
So
receptor detox?
I designed in the early 1980s Metagenics first femline for doctors.
Amazing.
Susan Lark, who had her office around the corner, I had my practice with multi other doctors in Palo Alto around the corner from her. She designed the first multi daily vitamin for women, and I
Hmm.
designed the first line of nutraceuticals for menopause, for painful breasts, for painful periods, etc. It was called the Femline for Metagenics. And then after I wrote Hormone Deception, which was one of the first breakthrough books
Yeah.
in endocrine disruptors and how they make, our toxic planet
Yeah.
is attacking everybody's hormones, even in the womb and in the
Hmm.
placenta, the placenta, mother's milk. So children are born, young women and men have less hormones and hormones out of balance in their teens.
Mm.
Hormone testing and replacement is no longer just for perimenopause,
Yeah.
postmenopause, and andropause. Um, in fact, Marty McCary came out in January with a number of the wonderful testosterone um, experts that I've had on my past podcasts myself, like Abraham Morgenthaler.
Mhm.
And he said, just in the way that we should test lipids and glucose in everyone from 11
Mhm.
years old and up, we should be testing hormones and their binding proteins
Mhm.
in everyone from 11 years old and
Wow.
up because of endocrine disruptors and exposure in the egg and the sperm and the placenta and the amniotic fluid
Mhm.
and mother's milk, because the planet is dirty. We have
Mm.
young human beings who have less and less hormones, and so we have very young women and men who have symptoms that we used to only
Yes.
see in 60 and 70-year-olds, but now we're
Yeah.
seeing it even in younger. So everyone should be tested in
Yeah.
hormones. And
Yeah, for
that's part
sure.
of the problem is our hormones are our most powerful signaling molecules. They're
Mm.
not just about sexy things.
Mm.
Not just about reproductive things. So we used to think that a hormone signaled like a lock and key. So the
Yeah.
hormone was the key and it was looking for the lock, which was the receptor, and it would go in
Yeah.
here and give off a signal, and that could speak to genes. But then we discovered that hormones could speak to all cell membranes, and
Right.
you have cells all
Yeah.
over your body. So
Mhm.
hormones can speak to your kidneys, to your heart, to your
Yeah.
bones, to your skin, to everywhere. In the last 2 years, we've discovered that hormones can signal without a receptor, without that lock and key. Hormones can signal without cell membranes, and they
Right.
can directly signal into mitochondria, to
Wow.
brain microglia. We now know that hormones run the Wi Fi of your physiologic
Mm.
internet. And you know how if you wake up in the morning and you open up your computer
Mhm.
and it's not working, you
Yeah.
can't do diddly squat.
No.
And if when hormones are lowering and getting dysfunctional,
Yeah.
you're getting older or you're getting sick. So
Yeah.
and we live in a planet that's not hormone friendly.
No.
It's got kryptonite everywhere for hormones. So we
That's it.
need to have hormones on our brain, but we don't have providers that are trained to think
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah. And even, you know what? Even young, like especially with progesterone, and obviously, Phyllis Bronson, Carol Peterson, they're wonderful experts when it comes to progesterone, right? I think even our younger kids who are going through puberty and aren't having regular cycles, like I have a teenage daughter and she was having very heavy bleeds because she's going through puberty, right? And she was, there's that stop-start ovulation and she was becoming anemic. Well, you've got this beautiful bioidentical hormone, progesterone, that can be safely used, but there's so many providers that wouldn't go near it, but they would give the birth control pill out
Yeah,
very,
so
very
that's the
happily.
problem is that GYNs are trained in delivering babies and surgery.
Mm,
They are not trained in women's health and they are
yeah,
not trained in hormones. Get that.
yeah,
Get that. But who do we go to when we have a hormone question? We
yeah,
go to them because who else
yeah,
would we go
yeah,
to? So
yeah,
we just so I have a pro group that I've had now for 6 years
yes,
that's mostly GYNs and pharmacists and
yeah,
nurse practitioners, et cetera. And we've been twice a month we get together and we have a lecture and then we have office hours and case reports.
yeah,
So recently we had Jerry Lynn Pryor, who is an
yes,
MD PhD, who's the oldest woman in looking at ovulatory science and
yeah,
what to do. And
yeah,
she says, first of all, the birth control ruins ovulation,
yeah.
makes young girls have thinning bones and all kinds of
Oh,
problems. It's the worst thing could have ever, but that's what OBGYNs are trained
yeah.
in. That's what they're
Mm-hmm.
trained in
Mm-hmm.
because they're not trained in actual hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And she recommends giving anyone who has oligomenorrhea or issues with menstruation
Mm-hmm.
because the regularity of your menstruation gives you a little hint of the health of your
Yeah.
physiology. A very
Yeah.
healthy girl has
Yep.
very, very regular menstruation.
Yeah.
When her menstruation gets off or it gets very
Yeah.
heavy or it gets very painful, menorrhagia, dysmenorrhea,
Yeah.
she's got issues in her tissues. So she
Yeah.
recommends giving 300 milligrams of natural progesterone,
Mm-hmm.
not birth control
Yep.
pills, for the midweek, in the middle of the week from day
Yep.
19 through another week,
Yep.
for a solid week. And she said it can take you up to 3-4 years to recover from birth control pills
Oh,
and for the
goodness.
bone loss that you get from birth
Terrible.
control pills or the bone loss you get from synthetic progesterone.
Yeah.
But this is not known by most
Yeah.
doctors
Oh, it's
that are
infuriating.
well intentioned,
Yeah, for
but you
sure.
go to ask for help and they give you wrong answers because they
Yeah.
don't know the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we're here. And we keep getting off track because we're going to bring it back to bias.
Oh, biased. Okay.
But yes, that was all very important. I mean, we could honestly talk for hours. But let's talk about bias and
Why don't I
then
come there and do a retreat? I want to come
yes.
back to Australia,
Yes,
do a
please.
retreat.
Absolutely. So let's talk about bias. And then, I would love to ask you something else. I'm just going to highlight this question. And I don't know, I'm not sure if you, well, yeah, it'll be interesting. But first, why don't we talk about bias just real quick in regards to the breast and breast cancer? Because it really does, it plays a big role there, right?
Well, so you have a wide variety of estrogens for a wide variety of reasons. And one
Yeah.
of the reasons you have estriol, which used to be thought of as mostly a
Mm.
pregnancy estrogen because
Yeah.
it's very high when a woman becomes pregnant. And that's one of the reasons that pregnancies have been associated with a decreased incidence of breast cancer because it's
Right.
very breast protective.
Yeah.
But Dr. David Rosensweet, who happened to be
Uh-huh.
one of my doctors when I had breast cancer, of all
Amazing.
things, and now
Yeah.
he's in the hormone space, and I'm
Yeah.
in the hormone space with him. And so we've been colleagues for like 32 years.
Wow. Yeah,
And
he's
I have so
incredible.
much, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah.
So he did a study with my mentor.
Right.
And they looked at young naturopathic students that had normal periods, regular periods. So out of 600 naturopathic students, that came down to about 60, because not very many women have regular normal
Yeah.
periods in today's world. And they were able to show that in young women,
Mhm.
estriol is the highest level of estrogen in
Yeah.
any young, healthy woman.
Yeah.
That estriol is a very elevated amount inside a young, healthy woman's body. And then Yanaki Gustafson came along and said, well, why? The reason is
Mhm.
it protects against inflammation, it protects against cancer,
Yeah.
and it protects your ovaries, it protects your brain, it protects your uterus. It is a tissue protector. So
Yeah.
you can take estradiol without estriol, but why would you want to? Well,
Yeah.
because some gynecologists on social media are telling you it's dangerous, it's bad,
Yes,
it's
that's right.
immunosuppressive. So when we
Yeah.
had that debate, we said, give us
Yeah.
one article, give
Yeah.
us one study, give
Mm.
us one, just one, where estriol is. Oh,
Yeah.
Janet Tamaguchi, that was her name. Give us
Yeah.
so that one study that shows that estriol is damaged. They couldn't. They couldn't give
Yeah.
one study because it's just their
Yeah.
opinion
Yeah.
without any science
Yep.
to back it.
Yeah.
So you can take estradiol by itself, it's not going to hurt you. But
Yeah.
if you take estradiol with estriol, it's more like the way nature intended.
Sure.
Now, I've been on Bi-Est for 30, I've never taken estradiol without
Right.
estriol.
Yeah.
And so everybody says to me, I just came back from Mexico and there were 450 medical doctors. The majority of them just had finished their residencies. There were a
Yeah.
number of oncologists there too, in their 20s, 30s, early 40s.
Right.
And they were all going, how do you do you? How do you look like you? How do that you
Yes.
have that energy of you? How do you do that? And
Yeah.
I go, a lot of it is hormones,
Yeah.
exercise, organic food, but the foundation
Yeah.
is that I've been on healthy hormones for a very long period of time. And
Yeah.
the proof is in the pudding. It really
Yeah.
is. If you talk to women who have been on Bi-Est and the other hormones, because there's pregnenolone,
Yeah.
uh, there's dehydroepiandrosterone, DHEA, there's
Mm.
progesterone, there's testosterone. There's some gynecologists online that are saying testosterone's dangerous for women. That's crazy. That's totally crazy.
Yeah.
Testosterone helps you keep muscle mass and
Hmm.
and protects your brain from
And
Alzheimer's.
protects your breasts too. You've spoken a lot about that.
Testosterone's the
Yep.
most, so every single breast cancer patient,
Uh-huh.
there's no breast cancer patient who should be denied testosterone.
Yeah.
None. And
Yeah.
this is based on the work of Rebecca
Yep.
Glasser and Konstantin Dimitrakakis. And Rebecca Glasser was one of the
Mm.
speakers at my and co-sponsored conference, Everything
Right.
Breast Cancer, with
Yep.
David Brownstein. And
Amazing.
she's one of my heroines. I think she should
Yeah.
get the Nobel Prize. But then if you give it with a estrogen blocker or not depends on the complexity of the case. She
Yeah.
feels, she has her opinions about that.
Yeah.
But testosterone, why is testosterone breast protective? It signals the exact same receptors that estriol signals.
There it is. Ding,
There
ding,
it
ding.
is. So testosterone is metabolized.
Uh-huh.
So you get the parent hormone,
Yep.
testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
and then inside the body,
Mm-hmm.
it's broken down in what's called breakdown products called metabolites.
Mm-hmm.
So testosterone goes to dihydrotestosterone,
Mm-hmm.
DHT,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes to two different forms of 3-beta adiol, 3-beta
Mm-hmm.
diol.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3-beta adiol and DHT
Mm-hmm.
both signal ER beta, the
Mm.
exact receptor that estriol signal, which is why it's so safe to give breast cancer patients estriol. So
Yeah.
why is estriol dangerous? She's published data, really in-depth detail. She first took women who never had breast cancer and tracked them prospectively, meaning into the future. Well, what are their hormones? She measured their hormones and their ratios and looked to see who eventually got breast cancer. So she checked them at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And at 15 years, there was a pattern.
Mm.
The women more prone to breast cancer had low levels of testosterone
Right.
and had higher levels of estrone, which
Mm.
is the one form of estrogen that 90% of the time signals ER alpha or
Yeah.
growth.
Mm.
So we have these teachers out there, these OBGYNs and
Mm.
internists saying, never give a woman testosterone. It's the exact
Mm.
opposite. Testosterone is breast protective,
Yeah.
but that's because it signals the same receptor as estriol.
Wow.
Estriol is breast protective.
Yeah.
Show me
Wow.
this study, but when we went on a 90-minute debate.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
showed no study. When we got off, David Rosensweet looked at me and he said, that was a friggin' waste of time. They
Yeah.
didn't give us one study. Why are they going on social media and scaring everybody?
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
I want to be famous. I want to
yeah.
be,
I
I
want to
want to,
have information other people don't have, so I
I
look
know
to
it
be.
makes me so
Yeah,
aggravated.
me too. I'm a real truth seeker. Like I'm a real truth seeker. So it really pees me off. I'll drop the link to that debate in the show notes
Sure,
too.
sure.
Okay, so
I didn't want to say
I
the name because I didn't want to be a nasty person,
yeah.
although I was
Well,
the ghost of my
no.
ovaries was wanting me to say that name.
The ghost of my ovaries. Love it. Love it. It's not about being mean. It's about really trying to get women the truth. That's what
And
it's
not making
about.
them frightened when they shouldn't be
Well, and
frightened.
and and I have like the reason I brought up what happened to me is because that was actually incredibly disturbing that I switched to vaginal progesterone stupidly against my better judgment.
It's
And it
not
was
stupidly. You just tried some.
I
It's not
tried some
stupid. You just tried
I
something
did
else and
just
it
try
didn't work
something.
for
It didn't
you.
work, but it
But
was
I
very
take progesterone
concerning.
vaginally. I take it
Yeah.
topically and I take it orally.
And
I
you know
take it
what?
all three ways.
And this is actually very important too, because what works for one doesn't work for another. And this is why I really
Exactly.
love Dr. Phyllis Bronson and Carol Peterson and the work they do with Jill Chmielewski and getting this information out about progesterone. Because one of my best friends, she cannot take oral or vaginal progesterone. She goes into a meltdown that's very, very scary. Topical, no problem. But then we have a lot of these doctors out there saying topical doesn't work because they don't
That's re
understand
that's
the
ridiculous.
conversion. They do, correct.
Topical has been used for years, but in 5 minutes it all goes to
Correct.
yes.
So you
So
can't
you
measure
can't
it.
measure it always in the blood,
And so
but
then they falsely assume it's not absorbed, but no, it's been converted too quickly to be able to be measured. So if they understood the biochemistry, thanks Carol and Phyllis, who I learnt this from, these doctors would understand. And you don't even need you don't even need the blood. You can see it. I've had women with panic apply it topically, panic gone. You can see it works. So that actually really pees me off because people can't take it orally, can't take it vaginally, and think they haven't got any other solution, but they do. So it's all
well,
about
there's
truth.
also ways to desensitize a person to having these
You've talked
adverse
about that before.
reactions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a
Okay.
nurse practitioner who's
Yeah,
used my products
yeah.
on 250 patients by now and desensitized all the people who couldn't handle hormones in a specific
Oh,
delivery mode. And then she used hormone balance and protect and
protect
receptor
receptor
detox. And she has a
detox.
specific ways. And we're doing a video of her because she's done this now, replicated. It's
Okay.
Carol Brinkman. She doesn't
Uh-huh.
mind me saying her. She's
Uh-huh.
she's been a member of my pro group for 6 years, and she's been to
Great.
almost every
Yeah.
single um, hormone lecture that I've given over the many years, and I've
Yeah.
probably given 100 to 200 lectures at least for CMEs for doctors.
Mm.
And she went ahead and designed this use of the products to desensitize adverse reactions to different
Mm.
delivery modes. And she's now used it successfully on over 250 patients.
Wow.
So this Friday,
Yeah.
we're videotaping her and we're going to put it up for free
Oh,
on my
good.
website and then
Okay.
put it also up on the Biotics website to just
Oh,
pass the
good.
information forward for
Okay.
no cost, or you don't have to do anything. You'll just give your email and then we'll
Yeah.
send you the video link.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so final question, because we've been going for an hour. Um, do you want to tell us you maybe you don't want to, I don't know, but do you want to tell us your opinion on mammograms or breast cancer screening? Do you have thoughts on that? Because that's a bit of a muddy area. It's not one that I've dived into. I've had a mammogram, but breast and ovarian cancer run in my family. Do you have any thoughts?
So I have a lot of thoughts on that because
I
I've
thought you
had
might.
breast cancer, and the type of cancer I had was not picked up by a mammogram. Was I actually had it? I palpated something in my
Wow.
breast a month after a negative mammogram,
Oh my
and I think it's
goodness.
very important to know how to give yourself a really quality
Yeah.
breast exam because you pick up most of bumps and lumps by your own knowledge of your tissue. But I am not. I know that mammograms have ionizing radiation. So does the Clearly study that looks at a
Mm,
plaque if you rupture. There's
yeah.
many different medical, but do I totally believe in a number of the things that are offered? There's no perfect way of measuring the breast. We
Mm,
now have a number of ex-breast cancer surgeons saying
yes.
that their methodology
Yes.
works, but they don't cover the entire breast. And I've heard some radiologists give very interesting analyses, negative analyses of those methods.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I don't think that we have a perfect way
Yeah.
to really assess the breast. So what I recommend to people, if
Hmm.
First of all, I've had breast cancer, so they tell you to get a mammogram every year. I don't want to get a mammogram every year, and I'm 33 years out or something
Mm.
like that now. So I usually do it about once every 5 years, and in
Okay.
between, I do an ultrasound.
Yep.
In between, I do other methods, and
Hmm.
I do very in depth. And I take a lot. I take my products, which
Yeah.
help reduce your risk in high dose iodine, which helps reduce
Yes.
your risk in many other things. And I measure and take things that help reduce cancer stem cells. So
Okay.
circulating cancer stem cells are what cause
Mm.
recurrence, but you have to have some kind of breast imaging
Yeah, for
and you have to
sure.
have some kind of breast self palpation.
Yeah.
So I think when I had breast cancer 32, 33 years ago, they recommended giving mammograms every 6 months. So for
Hmm.
years, I didn't know anything back then.
Wow.
For years, I had mammograms every 6 months. I think I've had
Wow.
way too ionizing radiation, but it doesn't mean I won't do a mammogram like every fifth year or
Okay.
sixth year because one analysis will pick up something, another analysis will
Yeah.
pick up something else. So if you're really looking to make sure your breasts are safe,
Hmm.
which is what this is all about, then rotate your ways, but know that ultrasounds and these other methods are not yet recognized as equal to the
Yeah.
diagnostic um, capabilities of mammograms. But who wants to, if you're not high risk, keep. But I'm supposedly high risk because I had breast cancer, and I don't even want to give
Mm.
myself that radiation every single year. But do I want to say I'll never have a mammogram? No.
Yeah.
Do I want to say I'll hang my hat on any of these other methods that are altered? No. Where
Mm.
are the comparison studies? Where do
Yeah.
we see the comparison studies of these high fancy ultrasounds yet with a mammogram? We
Yeah.
have the money to run those studies, but we don't have those studies. So you can't hang your hat on that yet.
Yeah.
So I tell my patients, learn your own breasts and let's figure out 3 or 4 imaging techniques and
Yeah.
let's rotate through them.
Great
If
advice.
somebody just
Hmm.
had breast cancer
Hmm.
and I'm dealing, so mainly I now work with breast cancer patients.
Right.
That's most of my common patient that I
Mm.
non-primary care
Okay.
consult with them and their main primary care providers. So
Okay.
I'll recommend that they do get a mammogram for the first few years because that's the most established diagnostic to make sure they stay safe because the
Yeah.
name of the game is staying well, staying safe, staying alive.
That's
And
it.
that's what we have. So it's a little bit complicated, but you want to cross off
Yeah.
mammograms totally just because they have some ionizing radiation to them. No, but in some cases you need to use them, and in other cases you can space it out and
Sure.
use others, but they're not set in stone as equal to
Yeah.
a mammogram. And I'm looking forward to the time
Yeah.
when we do get some of these. And I know that there's, physicians out there that have these ways of looking at the breast. Will get these studies run, and we'd
Yeah.
love to, to sing your praises to the
That's it.
sky as soon as we have this science behind
Yeah,
it. Because
exactly.
that's what we want. We want them
Yeah.
compared.
Yeah.
And even mammograms, my form of histologic type, the cellular type of my tumor, it's so let me just tell you this one little thing before we change. And one
Sure.
of the reasons I put on everything breast cancer. So I had a mammogram and it was negative. And then because I always every day in the shower, I just touch my breast so I can
Mm.
know what my breast feels like. And I like my breast. So, and I'm not in a relationship, so that's the only way I get my breast touched.
Whatever works.
So a month later, I felt something,
Yep.
and I called up my provider. She said, "Well, I'm going on vacation. You just had a negative mammogram. You're fine." I
Mm.
said, "I want to come in and have a
Mm.
biopsy because I really want to stay safe. That's the name of the game. I love life. You
Mm.
love life. We want to live."
Mm.
So I went in, she did a biopsy, and it came back unconclusive, meaning we
Mm.
don't know what the hell's going on in there. So she was going off for a 6-week vacation. And ultimately, I just couldn't stand it. And I went ahead and had a lumpectomy,
Mm.
and it turned out to be cancer.
Goodness.
And then it turned out to be this rare type that had never been found in the United States
Oh,
in
you're
any other
kidding.
breast, in any other woman, of course.
Of course.
And they wanted to treat me the way they treat everybody else. So my my oncologist was a man and my radiologist was his wife. So they were a husband and wife team.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, how do you know that the way you treat every other breast cancer patient that's different than me works for me? And they
Mm.
said, you've got breast cancer. You've got breast cancer. You know, you need radiation. You need radiation. You got to have radiation. So I said, well, what do you know about this type? And they didn't know diddly squat. Their
Mm.
eyeballs rotated. So I'm a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
I started diving into the research and I bumped into a lot of these Nordic country
Mm-hmm.
studies. They had several studies in Finland
Mm.
on 30 women and 60 women that had this rare type. And there's always a primary investigator. And then, just like I said with the Women's Health Initiative, Jacques Rousseau was the primary investigator, and then there's co-authors. So that the primary investigator usually has their email address and phone number sometimes on the head of the heading in peer review and PubMed.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept trying to reach out to the primary investigator, but the time was different because they're in Finland and
Mm.
I'm here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm calling them and I'm calling them and I'm not getting the laboratory, but I'm leaving a message. So she convinces me that I need radiation, and I go into the radiation lab and I get, which I'm sorry I did, but I got fluoroscopy on my chest to
Mm.
set up the grid lines to get
Mm-hmm.
radiation. And then there is a God. She got called out of the room for something. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I
Wow.
think it's because I pray. She got called
Oh,
out of the
wow.
room. And right while she got called out of the room,
Mm.
this is so emotional. My
Wow.
phone was in my purse and it rang, and I jumped
Stop.
off the table where I was going to start radiation. And
Oh,
it was a Finnish
gosh.
number. And I picked up the phone and it was the primary
Yeah,
investigator.
that's
And I
not a
said,
coincidence. That's not a coincidence. That's incredible.
so I said, well,
Wow.
I'm here about ready to get radiation. And he said, well, in all the Nordic countries, this histologic type, nobody allows any of these patients to get radiation because it's not picked up by mammogram. It's too it's mucinolagic. It's
Okay.
made up of too much fatty tissue and
Sure.
it's not picked up by a mammogram. So once you get radiation, you get fibrosis and you can pick up all the other breast cancer types again by mammogram, but not this type. So we
Oh,
do not let any women with this type get
wow.
radiation. And I was like, F and A, I'm up
Yeah.
and out of here. So she comes walking into the room
And you're out of
and
there.
I tell her, yada, yada. I tell her the whole
Yeah.
story. And she literally,
Yeah.
I kid you not, she
Mm.
points her finger in my face and she goes,
Mm.
I don't care what that effing, she uses the whole word, guy in Finland says, mind you, he's an MD, PhD. She says, if you don't get radiation, you are going to effing die.
Oh my
You are going
goodness.
to effing
Oh
die.
my
Twice she
goodness.
says this. So I jump off the
Yeah.
table.
See ya.
I put my clothes on. I
Mm.
leave. And when I was putting on Everything Breast Cancer,
Yeah.
which was April of this year, 2026,
Yeah.
to train providers to have these conversations, intelligent
Mm.
conversations with breast cancer patients, like what do we have available science-based to help keep you safer?
Mm.
Um, I looked into how do women with this histologic type get treated today
Mhm.
in the United
Yeah.
States. So I had breast cancer 32, 33 years
Yeah.
ago. So now we're 32, 33 years later.
Yeah.
They still get radiation.
No.
So I had to put on this conference because
Yeah.
oncology, although my patients that live longest do the best of both
For
worlds, they do
sure.
some of regular care. They certainly they debulk the tumor, get rid of the tumor,
Yep.
and some of functional
Yeah.
medicine. But I realize that there's so much misinformation and women get treated
Yeah.
wrong that this is my legacy because I'm a DES
Mm.
daughter. I couldn't have children, as I know
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So that's why all this came about.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I lived it. And then, of course,
Mm.
I went on to have kidney cancer, the
Yeah.
type that DES offspring have. So I've had
Mm.
cancer twice. So it was
Mm.
really my legacy to try and help us ex-cancer patients. What's the reality in science
Yeah.
behind trying to live longer, safer? So I don't know it all, but this is the best that I can offer,
Yeah.
you know, before my expiration date is
Oh,
up.
which is a long way from now. So
Hopefully from
we
your lips to God's ears.
Yeah. So listen, we are so lucky to have you, and I am so glad I found you many, many years ago, and I've learned so much from you. So thank you. Thank you a million times over for all
And
the
just so
work
you
that you
know,
do.
Jill Chimowski and I are talking about having a breast cancer summit online for free for women.
Fabulous. Oh,
We're
that'll be
chatting about it.
wonderful. I
Because
will
Jill's
promote it. Yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for being you, and I'm lucky to have
Oh.
you in your life. And I love, love, love Australia and Australians. Good
Well,
for you, and let us be human to human.
absolutely. And you will always be welcome. If you come down here, give me a call. Well, thank you so much. And it was just an honor. I'll put all the information in the show notes, the discount code to your amazing course, just all the links to you, your Instagram, everything. And thank you again.
Okay, blessings, my darling. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
I am not a medical professional, and the information provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. I do not have access to your individual medical history or circumstances, so the content discussed here should not be considered as medical advice. Before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or considering the use of supplements, please consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your doctor to ensure it's safe and appropriate for your specific situation. Any decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are at your own discretion and risk. Thank you for tuning in.